400 square inches above the waist in a visible manner for the safety of the hunter, and it saves a lot of lives. It really does, yeah. On today's hunt, we have the opportunity to shoot a bull elk, a brow-tine bull elk, a cow elk, a buck mule deer, a doe mule deer, or a buck whitetail deer, or a doe whitetail deer, and they're all up here. They're here. The hunting conditions are not the best. We don't have enough snow to move animals down low. We have crunchy snow conditions for walking, and we're all out of shape, and we're going to huff and puff up the hill and spook all the game away. And besides that, we're running late, so we may as well go down to the bar and drink vodka and, and just talk about hunting and make up lies.
Защелкнут затвор, проверен топор, отточен клинок, поддернут сапог. В долине реки нет тверже руки, а мой карабин не терпит обид. Сегодня старый гризли шкуру синевец мне отдаст. А если не сегодня, дьявол с ним, пусть ставит свечку. Бог спас. Красотка жена скучает одна, придется терпеть, меж нами медведь. Я шкуру врага ей брошу к ногам, в долине реки нет тверже руки. Сегодня враг мой гризли шкуру синевец мне отдаст. А если не сегодня, дьявол с ним, пусть ставит свечку. Бог спас.
My name is Kurt Alt, and I'm the wildlife manager for Region 3, which is southwestern Montana, and I have a staff of 8 wildlife biologists and wolf and bear management specialists and land managers like Fred King. I was born and raised in the state of Montana. I'm 55 years old, lifelong hunter. I like to trap. I do some fishing. I went to the universities in Montana to get my graduate degree, undergraduate and graduate degree, and this is my home. I would describe the foundational aspects of the North American model of conservation and restoration can be likened to a 3-legged stool, with one leg being an economic leg that has to generate dollars, another leg being a social leg that is a leg that really involves our public. It can't, in its application, it has to have public ownership. People need to have ownership in it. And the third leg is a political leg, which means that ownership has to be strong enough that the people are willing to vote for legislators at the state level that will make laws that are conducive to conservation and those opportunities that hunters and trappers and fishermen like. And so, it's a 3-legged stool. With one of those missing, it doesn't work. Well, the economic leg, it's really interesting. In the 1930s, during the U.S.'s Great Depression, is when federal enabling legislation was passed in the U.S. Congress, and one of those pieces, the most significant piece of wildlife legislation I think I'm aware of anywhere that in the world, let alone our country, is Pittman-Robertson, and it put an excise tax on every gun and every bullet sold. That means if somebody buys a gun in the U.S. or buys a box of bullets, that 10% of that value goes to the federal government, and then that money isn't held by the federal government, it is redistributed to the states, to each of the states based on a formula. And so that happened in the 30s. At that time, our model of conservation was protection. We had game wardens, we didn't have any biologists, we didn't have science, it was just enforcement, poaching, no poaching, anti-poaching. We had not moved into the realm of using data to expand and restore populations. With the use of those funds, universities started creating wildlife programs, wildlife management programs. Agencies were able to start developing a level of expertise that managed and conserved and restored populations based on science, and it's worked.
My name is Luke Mernan. I'm 12 years old, and I'm a hunter, and I have just killed my first elk. And we had practiced me getting off my horse, handing my dad the reins, getting my gun, and getting around in the chamber and putting the safety on. And so I did that, and there's 3 elk, and they bolted up a hill. And so I got off my horse, gave the reins to my dad, got my gun, slid around into the chamber, and put the safety on. And then I ran up the hill and cow talked, and it was, and so I swung up on it, and he spooked and he circled around, and I got up on my feet and started cow calling again to bring him back in. So he circled around, and I could see his back line and his head above a little ridge. And he came back in and he circled, and he was standing, quartering slightly towards me, 20 yards. So I took the shot and immediately cycled the bolt and took a follow-up shot, and he piled up.
We sell roughly 160,000 elk licenses a year at $19, $20 a license to residents. Anybody can buy one. Of that, we're limited to selling no more than 17,000 non-resident elk licenses a year. The resident licenses are really cheap on a relative scale to other things that happen in Montana. The non-residents are really expensive. They can be anywhere from $450 to $1,000. And so we limit non-resident participation. We charge an enhanced fee because they aren't residents. The Montana resident pays a very small fee to go hunting, to participate. What that does is maximize hunter participation at the resident level. Those are the people, if you think of the conservation model, that are socially involved, that also elect the state legislature, which makes the laws that govern wildlife conservation in the state of Montana. Non-residents don't have that tie, yet non-residents are really important for our funding, overall funding. We're the 4th largest state in the U.S. We have less than 1 million people. We have about 50% of our population either hunts or fishes or does both. Probably 300,000 hunters that you just call hunters, at least 300,000 in the state of Montana. Probably a few more, and when you combine fishing to it, over half the population hunts and or fishes. And a non-resident, I should say this, a non-resident in Montana is considered anybody that's not a resident of Montana. That is a person from Russia or Yugoslavia or Serbia, whatever it's called now, or North Dakota, a neighboring state, pays the same fee as a non-resident and has the same chance of getting a license as a person from another country. That's how unique and independent the states are. $369?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
2329.
Is that your home number?
My cell phone.
Okay.
And that's what I own a plumbing company, so that's with me all the time.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'm going to give this information to our local game warden, Ryan Gussie.
Okay.
And I just talked to him on the phone there before we got this taken care of, and he's going to be contacting you about the citations and and the whole works and everything like that. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So, so just wait for a call from Ryan.
Okay, and then just wait for the...
Yeah, are you headed back home now?
No, we're going to Interstate tonight. We got an invitation for the Sun
good.
Ranch.
Where are you staying?
We're staying at the Fair...
Fairweather?
When you take the bend, it's the first on your left there. When you go through Ennis and you start to bend north, it's the first motel on your left.
Okay.
Far,
Okay.
I think it's Fair or Fair.
I think it's Fan Mountain Inn.
Fan Mountain.
Fountain Mountain, is that what it's called?
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Ryan will probably get a hold of you tonight, so keep your cell phone on if you would.
Okay, I will.
All right. I'm Fred King.
Sir. Thank
Yep.
you. Appreciate your time.
Good to meet you guys.
Apologize
Yep.
for breaking the law.
That's all right.
Son of
That's
these
all right. We'll
circumstances.
get it straightened out.
Yes, sir.
And the hunter was on public land, but the problem with the situation and the reason why the elk was confiscated is that he shot from a legal road right-of-way. He was on the wrong side of a fence, you bet, and you're not allowed to do that in Montana. You can't shoot from a road right-of-way, or you can't shoot back across a public road. And what happens when you do that, that's illegal. That was one problem we had with this hunter. The other problem is that he was shooting in an area that is a weapons restricted zone. So that means that the only firearm that he could use, or the only weapon that he could use, would be a bow and arrow, a muzzle loading rifle, a shotgun, or a traditional handgun. And this hunter was using a 270 Winchester, a high-powered rifle. So in the situation we have down there, the shooting is so close, there's so many homes around, there's so many other hunters, that we want weapons that don't carry a bullet or a projectile too far away. And so there's two things that he did wrong.
What we do is we provide the opportunity to hunt, not the guaranteed harvest. So we're looking at, with elk hunter success rates, we're looking at 12 to 15% harvest success by people that buy, 12 to 15% of the people that actually buy an elk license actually kill an elk in a given year. So we manage the opportunity. We provide the opportunity at a cheap price for residents and a more expensive price for non-residents that funds our programs, but we could never support 100% success. And that's not what we strive to do. We provide what we feel is a reasonable opportunity, that hunters feel is a reasonable opportunity. They get 5 weeks during the gun season, 6 weeks archery hunting to go out and try to find an elk. And we hit 12 to 15% success.
One of the Winchesters that I recently bought is an old model 1895 Winchester. This is an older gun. The caliber of the .405 Winchester. It interests me because this is the caliber that our past president Theodore Roosevelt had taken to Africa to hunt lions and elephants and rhinoceros with. And so because of that, there was a double interest for me, not only because of the Winchester rifle itself, but because of the .405 caliber that Theodore Roosevelt, our hunting president, was interested in and used firsthand in Africa. Not only that, Theodore Roosevelt, continues to interest me because he was the founder of the Boone and Crockett Club. As an official measure and a member of the Boone and Crockett Club, this gun is not bought for personal protection. It's bought for the historic value, for the caliber, and for the enjoyment of owning this kind of a firearm. We're lucky in America that we can be able to do this and have the freedom to buy a firearm like this, enjoy the beauty and the quality of the firearm, and use it to shoot and just enjoy it. And it's a freedom that should not be. It's a privilege, I guess I should say, to be able to own something like this, and I don't take it for granted, believe me. It's a very, very special part of America. It really is.
Poaching, like every place else in the world, poaching can have a significant impact on Montana. but it isn't from a population standpoint anymore because we have such a strong hunting culture that feels this sense of ownership in wildlife and management of wildlife that we have hunters expanding our ability to report, to detect illegal activities, and they call. And they say this is going on because hunters feel, and if they see somebody doing something like poaching, they view it as it's stealing from them, it's stealing an opportunity from them next year, and so they get really angry. And so hunters self-police in a very strong way. We still have poaching. Enforcement still plays a vital role in our state's management, but we don't have poaching at a level that impacts populations anymore. And partly that is because half of our state hunts and fishes. People understand it's their resource. If somebody's stealing from them, they want it to stop and they're going to try to get them arrested, and they call us.
John Mernan. I am a hunter, and I've been a hunter from before the time I could actually even carry a gun, following my father around in the woods and hunting pheasants and animals back when I was growing up. And I feel very privileged to be able to pass some of these traditions to my son. My son is the third generation that's hunting here. His grandfather hunted in here since the 1950s, and he's been hunting with me since before he could carry a gun. And we've been able to take some of the fruits of the land and turn them into nourishment for our family. And this year was especially rich because Luke was able to provide meat for the table with his successful elk and deer hunt. I've been fortunate to have, while some years you're not successful, some years we aren't. I've probably killed maybe a dozen elk and probably somewhere between 20 and 30 deer, and maybe a dozen or 10 antelope. When I was a student, we lived on wild meat, and we'd eat it 3 times a day. You know, we'd eat a deer in 30 days, antelope in 17, and an elk would last 4 months is all.
It's a big state. We've got a lot of different types of habitat, and elk populations in one area, one geographic area, may be going through challenges that are different than elk populations in other geographic areas in Montana. So in some areas of Montana, we have very liberal opportunities that allow a person to shoot a cow, a bull, or a calf for 5 weeks. In other areas, they are only allowed to shoot a bull. And that differentiation is in the offering we provide based on the data we collect in terms of how many calves are being produced and what our bull-cow ratios are. The differentiation between the opportunities by sex is really important. If we want a population to grow, which our intent would be to allow that to happen, it will provide more opportunity if we do that. The only way you can do that is don't harvest as many reproducing females. So we have a higher restriction on female harvest than on male harvest. In most places, in most of the state, a person can go hunt a bull. In half the state, a person, or a third of the state, a person can hunt any sex. And another third of the state, that opportunity to hunt cows or female segments is limited through permits. So, and it's a reflection of populations, it's a reflection of what we want elk numbers to do. We found that if you have a higher standing crop of elk, because you've shot less females for a period of time, you can actually expand elk hunting opportunities when they reach a higher level because they're producing more calves, which provides a higher opportunity, which actually allows us to then expand the harvest on females again.
I want to show one other rifle. Okay, I have another rifle for you to see. And again, it's not a rifle that's bought for personal protection, but it's a rifle that has a very great significance for me. This little rifle is an old Winchester 22 rimfire. It's a Model 47 Winchester. It's a single shot. This is a rifle that my father gave me when I was 9 years old, and this is the first gun that I owned. Again, the significance of the rifle as far as a collecting value or anything like that is nothing. But it's a very, very significant part of my life because of what it represents for my family. And also, this is the kind of tradition that was passed down to me that has gotten me to where I'm at right now as a wildlife professional and involved with managing the wildlife resource, and also, you know, the involvement of firearms with our hunting heritage. Very, very special gun. There's nothing really fancy about it. It's just a little old 22 single shot rimfire, but a very, very special gun to me personally.
Well, I think in the wildlife arena, everybody's a wildlife expert, and people have a lot of opinions. And when I talk about science-based management, I talk about collecting data in a way that's repeatable over years and throughout time, that's not just willy-nilly gathered, but is designed to be collected at certain times of the year on an annual basis that allows us to really evaluate and track populations in an unbiased way. The coffee shop talk doesn't count when you're trying to really conserve and restore populations. You need that biological understanding of what populations are doing. And so from that perspective, that's what I mean by science-based. It's really collecting data in an objective way, and then it allows you to interpret data in a variety of ways, but at least it's the same set of data that everybody looks at, and it's not opinions. The data speaks for itself. How that's applied can take many different directions, but at least we're all working from the same set of data that's been objectively collected. Wildlife belongs to all the people. We're in a capitalistic system, but all the people own the wildlife. So everybody owns it. And so it's not an arena where it's driven by commercial interests. It's driven by the public's interest. And so where our job is, as our authorities, go across ownership boundaries with a few exceptions. Yellowstone Park is a unique status where we don't have authority in Yellowstone Park. Some refuges, we have co-authority where we have to negotiate with a federal wildlife refuge to work on opportunities for hunting. But outside of that, all federal Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management lands, state lands, and private lands, we have authority for regulatory aspects of wildlife conservation and management. And so where people can hunt, they can hunt on federal land, all federal land, they can hunt on all state land. Private land, they can hunt with permission. They have to have permission to hunt on private land. Many of our traditional landowners, our ranching agricultural interests, allow people to hunt for free. Some others have charged trespass fees. They can't charge to shoot an animal, but they can charge to allow a person to come on to hunt. So some landowners have tried to and have been charging trespass fees, which augments their income as well. So on private land, it's whatever the private landowner desires. It's either free or they may charge a fee for access. And then on all public land, it's open, if it's publicly accessible, if you don't have to cross private land to get there.
For a Montana hunter who has a general elk tag and a deer tag, that allows him to go anywhere in the state of Montana to hunt a deer or an elk, unless there is a special permit required, like Wall Creek, like I mentioned to you on this map right here, that they have to be able to hunt in that area. There are other areas like this throughout the state. It's up to the hunter to look through our hunting regulations, find those areas, and make sure that he knows what the boundaries are, what the restrictions are, and become familiar with those kind of special regulations. But in general, the holder of an elk tag for the state of Montana can go wherever he wants to.
all species that aren't on the federal endangered species list or are not migratory in the context of migratory waterfowl are managed by each state, independent of any other state. Those species that are listed have federal oversight with state management. I wouldn't call it co-management. The federal government has complete authority until they're delisted. Then it comes back to the state. And then federal migratory bird species, like waterfowl that we have hunting seasons for, are managed with federal oversight and state collaboration. So it's truly a partnership in the migratory bird species world, probably much more so than the endangered species world, where states really have to get together and collaborate and coordinate the opportunities they provide so they don't over-exploit species that go between states.
This area here will hold 65 to 75 elk, depending upon size. And it's all a trolley system, so once the animal comes in that door, he doesn't touch the ground until we've got him on the cutting table. So we'll wheel him in, then when the guys get ready to start working them up, we'll bring them back out, they'll hang on that hook, they'll skin them, split them, quarter them, and then we'll go right into the other plant along this rail system. And then the guy's name goes back on it, and we put it back in the cooler.
You make sure that the owner of the deer gets his own meat back.
100%.
Okay.
If you're trying to culturalize and institutionalize a conservation ethic, if you have the money, but you don't have the social participation, you won't get the politics. If you have the politics and the money and you don't have the social participation, at some point in time in the foreseeable future, it still won't hold up, it will collapse. You have to have all three legs to make it truly meaningful, especially when you apply it to a landscape where people live and work. And when we look at protected areas like Yellowstone, I know Russia has many large protected areas. It's easy, because it's easy, you can say people can't do anything there. But most of Russia, I suspect, like most of North America, is landscapes where people live and work and do other things. And if we can't involve them in management and conservation, we won't be successful in keeping populations connected in the long run. They'll become more and more isolated. Between the protected areas, there'll be no connection, and our programs are designed to make wildlife fit on that landscape where people live and work. And to do that, you need that three-legged stool.
Защелкнут затвор, проверен топор, отточен клинок, поддернут сапог. В долине реки нет тверже руки, а мой карабин не терпит обид. Сегодня старый гризли шкуру снимет, мне отдаст. А если не сегодня, дьявол с ним, пусть ставит свечку, Бог спас. Красотка жена скучает одна, придется терпеть, меж нами медведь. Я шкуру врага ей брошу к ногам в долине реки, нет тверже руки. Сегодня враг мой гризли шкуру снимет, мне отдаст. А если не сегодня, дьявол с ним, пусть ставит свечку, Бог спас.
I would say this first of all. In my short visit to Primorski Krai and meeting a bunch of hunters, I found a place in the world where our hunting cultures are very similar in terms of the passion and the interest by the people. And I found it interesting that in Montana we make a distinction. We have hunters and we have trappers. But in Russia, it's hunters and hunters mean trapping as well. So we have a lot of trapping activity in Montana. I was amazed and I felt so comfortable at home because I felt I was in a fraternity of people that understand the relevance and the significance of hunting and how that plays out. What I would say is don't do what Texas has done. Don't allow your resource to be privatized. Keep opportunities available to your local publics over non-residents, and non-residents may be people from other parts of Russia or other parts of the world. Limit that, charge them high dollars, but make numerous opportunities available to your local publics, and you will solidify and hang on to what you guys want.